Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome to this new SDA Bocconi live event. This evening we have the chance to discuss a very stimulating and attractive topic that is the global spirit industry and the impact of Covid-19, how to deal with future challenges. I will immediately introduce our distinguished guests, but let me just take a couple of minutes with few data. I have to say that it's not easy to evaluate the industry. The home premise consumption that is poorly measured in our country is one of the reasons. And of course, there are different data and reports that differ on categories of alcoholic beverages included in the different analyses. However, according to the most solid sources, such as IWRS or Nielsen, the industry is worth around 30 billion liters and 117 billion euros, including whiskey, rum, gin, brandy, tequila, spirits aperitif, bitters, liqueurs. Those are the main beverages included in those analyses. And in this scenario, Italy represents 2% of sales. In Italy, habits are very different compared to other countries, and it's not a secret that after dinner and aperitif are dominant consumption occasion in our country. And the reason why I mentioned Italy is not the case, because this evening we have the pleasure to have here with us Marco Ferrari, CEO of Montenegro Group.
Hello.
Good evening, Marco.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Mario Molinari, Chief of Business Development Officer of Molinari Italy.
Hello, good
evening,
afternoon.
Mario. Thanks to be here with us.
Thank you.
And Leonardo Vena, CEO of Lucano 1894, that is the company that owns the famous brand Amaro Lucano.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Leonardo. And here with me there is also Vittoria Veronesi, that is our director of the Master in Food and Beverage. And I leave immediately the field to Vittoria for introducing us the industry and the activity that we are able to perform in our campus.
Thank you, Federico. Good evening to everyone also from my side. The food and beverage industry represents one of the most important sectors in the Italian company, and most of all is one of the fundamental pillars of the Italian culture and heritage. As a matter of fact, Italy is worldwide recognized as a cradle of the F&B, and Italian food and beverage is a synonym of excellence, I should say, all over the world. SDA Bocconi School of Management 15 years ago, among many activities, started to design and then launch the Master of Management in Food and Beverage. That is an international full-time program that aims at training future managers of food and beverage and in the food and beverage and hospitality sector by providing an in-depth knowledge of the most successful F&B business models and managerial practices. I'm very pleased to be part of this stimulating and for sure challenging talk tonight. And I really would like to thank Federico for involving me and inviting me, and our guests for the added value they will be able to bring into the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vittoria. And let's try to stimulate a little bit our guests this evening. And I would like to start with Leonardo Vena, CEO of Lucano 1894. And with what happened in the recent past, every one of us knows that we were in the middle of the pandemic. And what are the key challenges that COVID-19 has posed to the spirit industry, and what have been the most effective solutions, Leonardo?
So first of all, thank you, Federico. I'm very proud to be here. Let me say something in Italiano. Grazie for inviting me. I'm very proud to be here because I'm a Bocconiano. I was a student a few years ago, and every time I come here, there is an incredible melting pot of emotion. So thank you once again. Let's talk about the challenges we faced. Actually, we are still facing. It's not easy to answer. It was not easy to answer together with my colleagues. One word, I want to underline one word. The key word of the first weeks was uncertainty. We actually didn't even know if we could produce, if we were part of the essential services. I remember myself sitting at television and listening up our Prime Minister ranking the list of the essential services. So challenges are a lot. We are still facing those challenges. I actually try to summarize and collect three big challenges, three big areas, if my colleagues agree. First of all, industrial. At an industrial level, we had difficult. It was not easy to work in terms of procurement, and especially the alcohol, that is one of our most important ingredients. The alcohol was completely dedicated to the production of sanitizers. Talking about market, I want to do a step back and explain that our industry is divided into three big channels. Three or probably more, but three big channels. On-premise, so bars and restaurants. Off-premise, supermarkets. Duty-free, so travel retail. We saw the total closure of the on-premise channel. That means that represents at least 50% in our industry. The off-trade continued to work, but was not able to compensate the drop of the other channel, especially in Italy, where there is a social dimension of drinking. We usually drink when we go out with friends and family. So the off-trade continued to work, but was not able to compensate the gap. And then travel retail completely closed. We had the total closure of the airports. And this channel is not important only in terms of sales, but also in terms of tastings and trying new products. What we did a lot of activities. We saw each other and said, we need to help our customers. If our customers die, we will die too. So first of all, we set up a lot of activity, such as deferred payments, supply of equipments, smaller boxes, even smaller boxes, because we had to help our customers. On the other hand, we pushed the e-commerce, we pushed the sales, especially in specific websites, and we saw a huge increase, especially in my company. I saw a huge increase of the e-commerce sales, but with the partial reopening of the bars and restaurants, the trends are coming back to the previous trend, so to the pre-COVID level. Then the third big area is linked to the advertising and communication. So most of the company, including Lucano, were obliged to rebuild, to rethink about our advertising campaigns, especially in terms of contents, but also in terms of programming, because we always show people drinking in bar and restaurants. So now, with the partial reopening, we will try step by step to reintroducing advertising, especially in television. But I'm sure that the post-COVID world will see a bigger weight of the digital campaigns.
Thanks a lot, Leonardo. And I think that our community now want to know what's next. So we were in the middle of the pandemic. You had to manage a lot, and we had to manage a lot of different issues in our fields. But specifically in your industry, what are the future expectations now? So how do you see the future of the industry after the pandemic, and specifically, how do you see the future of Italian spirits and why? And I would love that Mario is answering to these questions.
Well, I believe that, given that the key word is uncertainty, as Leonardo rightly said, we already had some evidences or feedbacks on what's going on and how the market is changing. First of all, I'm sure that all of us, all of our companies, needed to improve, especially in the online market, that increased for the whole industry. And that's something that brought, I would say, some modernization to all of our companies. Then we have some signs in the on-premise market, some evidence that the market is changing, and I believe that the service at the table, for example, is a very important key that all people from the industry, barmen, should take care of, and that most of the bars have shown that even if in the city centers they've been suffering, but still in our country, in Italy, they've been very good, especially in the neighborhood bar. I think that after the reopening, there was a good economy for the neighborhood bar. People that was not moving far away from their place, but they could find his barman of their whole life, of the whole life, and be able to go back to the origins, let's say. So that was also an important sign. And concerning Italy, I think that given that I believe that sooner or later this problem will be solved, I really hope so. But I think that Italy has a great strength, and the strength is that we have a fantastic country, a great country, and I think that all of us can sell together with their products the country where we have. Just to give you an example, we have a distillery in the north, a limoncello production in Sorrento, and a fantastic terrace in Rome, where together with our product we want to sell our country. And I think that's an important advantage, competitive advantage that our country has compared to the rest of the world.
If I can jump in and just comment, also building on what Leonardo was saying earlier. I think an interesting element that may be of interest for our audience is the fact that spirit manufacturers generally are a lucky kind. Our cash position, most of the companies, basically the cash position of most of the companies in the spirit industry is extremely positive and solid. And this has been a core strength during the crisis, and it's still demonstrating to be a key pillar of the industry. The same thing cannot be said of the customers that we serve and provide in the Horeca business or in the on-premise business, whether it's bars and restaurants or wholesalers and cash and carry that supply that channel. And so the main crisis and the main challenge, I think, as we all faced as businesses, was to to support our customers on that specific element, which was cash. So all the examples that Leonardo made are examples that really helped our customers with their core issue throughout the crisis, which was a cash position. I think that we managed the short-term hit, and again we can enjoy a level of solidity that is not average, is way above average as a business. I think the key question going forward is the sustainability of this cash issue for our customers. Leonardo said a great truth. If our customers don't survive this crisis, well, we're not going to survive a lot longer after that. So the big question is, what's next? A second lockdown may actually give a bit of a push off the cliff to a lot of our customers that managed to survive and handle the first crisis, but it may not actually be able to manage a second crisis. So obviously there is a big question mark, and that keyword, which is uncertainty, it was a massive issue in March when we were facing the first lockdown, but it's still there basically. And for us, we need to plan our budgets, we need to plan our investments, we need to plan our procurement, and we have a massive question mark on is the second lockdown going to happen? So I think that's probably looking forward. That the main concern is cash position of our customers going forward.
I'm jumping a little for a moment in this debate, and I ask to everyone, what did you learn during the first lockdown, and which kind of actions can you put in place in the case of a second lockdown? Or in the case of an additional crisis?
Sorry to interrupt you. This is exactly what George just asked.
Okay.
So what will be your long-term strategy, and with applying a sort of a macro vision in order to face the risk of a second pandemic wave? Not specifically related to COVID, but generally speaking, another crisis?
Okay, I'll try to answer. I'll say what I think, then I will leave the word to my colleagues. Once again, it's not easy to answer. I'm an entrepreneur together with Mario also. So I must be positive, first of all. A second lockdown, as Marco said, is something really, will be tragic, will be terrific in a negative way, by the way. Actually, uncertainty, once again. So, together with my colleagues, what I did, I always remember myself, I'm the youngest in this small team, not only in terms of age, but especially in terms of knowledge. So I remember myself calling Mario and then Marco and say, guys, I have no idea. So sometimes, and especially in this period, I actually compared the arrival of the pandemic 19 to a situation where the rules change. So it was something like the government decided to promulgate a new law. So you should be very quick, and what we did. So decide take decision very quick, and especially give to your colleagues the guideline to better understand the situation, and so thinking about the future, and that was what we did. With the partial reopening, we saw that it's quite impossible to change habits. So if I think at bar and restaurant, I'm sure that people, especially the youngest part of our customer, will continue to go out. Probably, as Mario said, will be the neighborhood bars will be more involved, but it's quite impossible to stop going out and drinking together. So I'm quite positive regarding the future, and I'm sure that if we respect and if we start living alongside with the COVID-19 or other pandemic, for sure we can go out and the situation can be over.
Well, I believe that given that I'm not sure that the world, the real economy will be able to suffer another lockdown, I believe that probably it would be easier to respond to a new lockdown because there are some habits that are now part of the Italian industry that until a few months ago were not part of the know-how of those companies. And I'm referring to smart working, of course, and to online sales. I mean, all the companies have improved in that way. So if it's if the reason would be a new pandemic, I think would be easier for us to to respond to the problem.
If I understand the question, basically on the one side is what we learned, on the other side is what how we would manage the future. On the learning side, I think as a group, actually at Montenegro, we realized we were a lot more ready for anything like that than we thought we would be. So it was actually a very interesting stress test on different dimensions. One on the crisis management, for example. We have a process of crisis management which we have introduced in the company in 2014, and which proved to be very, very useful throughout the pandemic. And why useful? Because it actually helped a multifunctional team to work under stress, take quick decisions that were actually very relevant, especially if you think that a lot of the decisions were affecting the health and safety of our employees, which is the most important thing. We're a lot more ready on the smart working side. Again, that was introduced in 2015 in our company, gradually first as a test and then gradually as a core element of our ways of working. So that was incredibly useful, both culturally and technologically, to be ready to face a stressed smart working experience 5 days a week for 3 months or even more. I think we had a lot of confirmations on, slightly repeating myself, on the importance of the strong cash position of any business, basically, because I think this would be key in managing the future, potential future second lockdown that we all hope is never going to happen. As far as the future, I think once the crisis management team in our company has stopped working on the urgency on the day-to-day, we immediately start working on a protocol in case something happens. So a few examples are stock management. We realized that obviously stock management has to be managed very carefully. Whether it's managing stocking your product internally or externally through third parties, supply, and for example level of procurement. I think we are managing our procurement slightly different because of the pandemic, but overall I think one key thing is that we realized our industry is extremely resilient. Once the lockdown was over, the restart at the beginning of June, especially when bars and restaurants reopened, was incredibly powerful. So we see a resilience that is actually making us look at the future with more optimism that we probably would have thought earlier.
Okay, let me ask, we are receiving lots of questions,
Wow.
So we will do our best to try to answer to all of you. Let me first ask Svetlin question. During COVID, do the Italian spirit producers collaborated somehow, also in order to, let's say, be competitive against the giants like Diageo internationally?
Well, there are.
It's not easy to answer.
No, I think there are. Personally, again, as a company, we're a member of the Federvini Association, and it's a network basically of all spirit and wine manufacturers in the country. and we found actually that and the role of Ferrovini has been quite relevant in many ways. On one side, in trying to lobby for some benefits and supports to the industry, and I think even just in terms of basically transfer of knowledge and. Let's be honest, our government did what they could, but not always the information that were coming to businesses were easily translated into action. So I think the role of Ferrovini was very, very useful in helping translate the government proceedings into actions. It's not really a matter of small versus big. I think the whole industry has been affected. So I think luckily there wasn't a war between the giants and the smaller players, and I think that was a good thing to see.
Thank you so much.
We have a lot of questions.
Yes, I'm getting almost crazy following all the questions. Another one, can you just give us a hint in percentage about the losses you faced during the COVID?
Yes. I'm actually talking about my company. Frankly speaking, as I said before, we saw a total closure of one channel, once again the on-premise, that represent at least 50% in our market. Once again, on-premise means bars, restaurants. That is not only important in terms of sales, but especially in terms of image of our products. Frankly speaking, talking about my company, the off-trade was not able to compensate. And I'll be quite happy to close my year with probably 15% less than the previous year.
Yeah, I agree. I have more or less the same feedback from the market. And well, going back to what you said about the industry, I think that many also Italian companies that decided to do something locally and not only as a whole industry. So we have a foundation. We did something in our territory, and I've seen a lot of industries, even multinational companies, big companies that gave alcohol to clean, yes. And they were really sanitizers, yes, and so I've seen that from our industry there was a lot of help.
On Montenegro's side, we are experiencing quite some growth, and therefore it's not really a decline versus last year, but it's more of a what growth we're missing. So I would say that we're in the lines of probably missing about 10 points of growth compared to what we were expecting. But there are some numbers that Trade Lab is trying to put together. So their latest estimate that they issued in August, their expectations are that in the 12 months of 2020, the on-premise business will be down roughly 35%.
And just an additional question on that. Did you find some data? Did you see some data after the lockdown phase that surprised you?
Oh, yes.
Especially in terms of talking about the on-premise, we saw incredible numbers regarding bars and restaurants. So as I said before, you cannot change the habits. You cannot change. You cannot ask people stay at home and drink at home. Especially in Italy, we have an incredible social dimension. Thanks God. So when we drink when we go outside together with friends and family. Regarding the off-trade, also talking about the Amaro category, I was talking before with my colleague Marco. We are seeing an incredible step up of our numbers, and we are still talking how it's possible. So what's your opinion, Marco?
Yeah, to answer the question, we have seen, I would say that the recovery after the lockdown has been, for all of us, significantly higher than what we expected. Internally, we had a scenario where basically we expected the on-premise to gradually pick up, but still being significantly down versus the previous year. But luckily, we've seen that from beginning middle of June, basically numbers were pretty much in line with the previous year. So certainly a very reassuring set of figures. But I would say that probably the most impressive figures today are the ones from the off-premise, which is hypermarkets and supermarkets, where the growth of a lot of categories right now is even double-digit, and that's again something is quite impressive. So certainly in-home consumption has grown. We will see if this endures throughout the rest of the year and how much of that is compensating the loss of the other core channel.
Vincent is asking, what changes have you noticed in consumer purchasing behavior?
Short term or long term? I think
Well,
that's two very different questions,
let's say-
two very different answers.
Yeah.
Let's say short term, probably.
Okay.
I mean,
Short term, once again, as I said before, we saw an incredible opportunity for the e-commerce. Commerce started growing double-digit. Even the off-premise worked with incredible numbers. My view in long term is that you cannot change the habits, and for sure the e-commerce will continue to grow, but at a actually previous pre-COVID level.
Well, I believe that it's not, I'm not sure if it's something that is directly related with COVID, but what I have experienced as well is a lot of attention for the knowledge of the brands. I think that the possibility to talk directly to your consumer through the online, so that I've noticed that they ask questions, and I think that this is somehow the new world is somehow changing. I mean, we went from the century of masses that was the 20th century to the century of the individual attention, the tender loving care for your customer that wants to know more about your brand and want to be almost part of your brand and on the style of the brand. And that's something that really impressed me a lot.
One strong evidence from our data is that right now, basically, consumers have gone back to brands that are reassuring for them, and that often is related to level of awareness and strong, solid brands. And that's actually probably an interesting short-term effect of COVID on consumption. At the same time, during the peak of lockdown, the brands that suffered the most were the premium brands, and the ones obviously with a strong bias in the on-premise. But premium brands were struggling more than lower price brands.
okay, thank you.
I think that our community is really interesting in your reactions during the pandemic. And I think that they are also interested in understanding the future and to be optimistic about the future. So, Marco, what are the key drivers of success and growth in the spirits industry for the next future?
I think the spirit industry is I would say, relatively, I would define it unsophisticated industry in its dynamics. But if I look at, for example, the success, international and global success of many brands or many companies, you see some common traits. The first one being basically that there cannot be any success in our industry unless you have a very solid and strong route to market. With route to market basically is the flow that a product has to go through from manufacturing to the consumer. And in more common terms, that means you need either a strong, solid distributor, if you cannot afford setting up your own company in a local market, or a strong, solid local company. But I think this is a key element. You need to have the ability to cover all the channels, depending on the market. The on-premise either is between 25 and 60% of consumption. There are countries like Italy where on-premise is fundamental. But whether it's 60% or 25%, that is the channel that defines the trends in our industry. And then you first learn and experience a brand or a cocktail or a product in general, basically in the on-premise, and then once you become loyal to it, you bring it home with you and buy it in a supermarket or hypermarket. So the ability to cover the on-premise channel in a solid way is a key driver of success, and overall having a solid route to market is fundamental. One, I would say, second element is focus. I think there is a tendency in many companies to try to do too many things at the same time. But actually, if you have the ability to sacrifice certain things in favor of other priorities, you're going to see a lot of success. And again, this is a common trait of a lot of successful ventures internationally. The third thing, which again makes our industry quite interesting, is the fact that we are a marketing-driven, brand-driven industry. Private label in the spirit industry is still relatively small, in some countries nearly inexistent. So strong brands are the key to success as well, which means solid investments, continuity in the investments, consistency across the years. Again, very often I would say that I define it unsophisticated, but at the same time, the fun thing about our industry, besides the fact that we are justified to put on our expenses to go out into bars and restaurants, is also the fact that it has a lot of the traits of consumer goods in general, but also a lot of the traits of the luxury industry. So I think these three key things are fundamental: strong RTM, focus, and solid investments behind solid brands.
I'm interested in, and I hope our community too, in understanding something on marketing investments in your industry, and specifically the role of the social networks in your marketing and communication activities.
I'll try to answer. As Marco said, our industry is really marketing driven, and the social media, so the digital world, has seen an incredible growth in the last 10 years. If I think about my company, it's an historical, a very traditional company, so it's really weird to talk about social media. But if I see the numbers now, especially in the past 5 years, the dimension, the weight of the offline campaigns such as television, who's still absolutely important in this market, is absolutely is down. The digital and social media are growing up in an incredible way. That means Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, such as Twitter. Lucano, for example, that is an iconic brand, uses a lot social media, not only in terms of advertising, but also to stay together with our customer, and especially during lockdown. If I think of the lockdown, we set up a lot of activities also with our trade customers. I mean, masterclass. We did a lot of activity to engage our customers. So it's an incredible opportunity to talk together every day with our customer. And if I think about the next years, for sure the weight of the online and social media will increase. Even in a company small like mine.
Well, I wouldn't be as drastic as Leonardo, because I think that still, you know, the majority of the share of our expenses in media is going to be on TV. But I think that you know, originally the on-premise, the online and the socials were something who were part of the engagement. So the idea was, okay, I'm gonna pick up a customer in the bar, and then I'm gonna follow him through the socials. Of course, what happened during COVID was something completely new, because bars were closed. So somehow the socials have substituted television to give information. So it was not anymore, you know, was not any longer a kind of message that came before a previous contact, possibly in the on-premise, but was a very important media for masterclass and even new engagement. So it completely, from our point of view, it somehow changed his role in our strategy.
I think to build on this, it really depends on the life cycle, obviously, of a brand as well. Because I agree, TV in Italy is still relevant, but let's be honest, you know, our brands are huge in this country, and our level of investment in the country of all our brands is very significant. If you look at the split of marketing investments for Amaro Montenegro in Italy, it's roughly just below 50% TV, and then you have about 20% on field activation, 10% on brand education, another 20% on digital, actually 25% on digital. If you look at our investments in the United States, where the brand is growing at a very high speed, but from a relatively small base, we do no TV whatsoever, and about 60% of our investments are on digital, 20% investments are on brand education, and about another 20% on field activations and events. So it really depends on the life cycle, on the status, and where you are. And to be honest, it depends a little bit also on the market. Italy is still very much a TV-centric country compared to many others. I think one important thing to just say, to finalize, you know, my comment on social media and digital is, unless it's fully integrated in a proper campaign and fully consistent with the rest of your brand positioning and the rest of your marketing activities, you know, it may not have actually the impact and the effect that we will hope. So integration and consistency with the rest of the campaign is absolutely fundamental.
I have another question from Tatagata, saying a lot of statistics in other countries say that alcohol is not very bad affected sector, since home consumption has increased due to the lockdowns. What are your thoughts on these, and do you think this is true for Italy as well?
I probably already
answered
to this question. Italy is, in my view, in our view, is completely different from the rest of the world. Italy, so in Italy, the closure, the total closure of the on-premise did not compensate. I mean, so the off-trade did not compensate the total closure of the on-premise, because especially in Italy, once again, there is a social dimension, thanks God, of drinking. So that means that you drink when you go out. Abroad, especially in some countries, the consumption at home is something that already exists. So we tried to compensate. We tried to push during the lockdown the off-premise sales, but you cannot change the habits once again.
Well, I agree with Leonardo. I can give you examples. For example, talking about Australia is a market that is mostly focused in the off-trade markets, on supermarkets, and we are growing this year. But that's one example. Of course, those markets where the on-premise is important, the industry will suffer a lot in those countries. That's my point.
Yes, regarding the social aspect you were just mentioning, Svetlin is asking, do you see a rise of an hybrid on-off premise model where you will ship a product physically using e-channels to home and then organize digital online tasting/gathering?
Oh, that's a
My view is in this aspect is not positive. We tried actually with also in US, in other countries, we try to do, for example, social media tasting, but it's something really weird. We produce liquors, we do alcohol, and the tasting is one of the most important thing. So for sure the e-commerce sales will increase, but my view is that the habits will not change. Will still remain at those trends.
Yeah, well, I agree on that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea actually, and I'm going to write it down. I'm going to look at the recording and write it down. But you know, we did, for example, in the US, try to compensate again the whole loss and the crisis by developing kits that were you know, with minion bottles, so 50 ml bottles basically, together with a mixer and a glass and a stirring a stirrer and all these things, so the full kit, so that consumers could finalize a cocktail on their own. I think these are all interesting ideas. Whether those ideas will actually make a difference in terms of consumptions and volumes, I'm very skeptical, at least in the very short term. But they can be interesting PR ideas or marketing ideas that can build some loyalty. So that's probably my view. More of a marketing tool rather than actually a sales and consumption tool.
Well, if I could add something, I noticed that Campari company just bought Tannico, which is an online company who sells spirits. I think that at that point, when you have that kind of verticalization, of diversification, vertical diversification, you can start exploring these kind of concepts. But you know, of course, they did something very smart from my point of view, and that's where the world somehow is going. So you know, this is a good idea that right now for us, but once you have a company that sells in the online, you can definitely grow a lot in that kind of experiments.
I have an interesting question from Julius. How to target the increasing health-conscious generation?
Maybe I'll jump in on this one. I think you know, for some people there may be a bit of an oxymoron, you know, between spirits and health. I don't want to get into the debate that actually a moderate consumption of alcohol, and there is scientific evidence, basically has potential positive benefits. But we all think that, strongly think that, without being hypocritical, health within the spirit context has to be linked to responsible drinking. I think there are some interesting phenomena nowadays. For those that have spent any time in the US or Canada, you have a category called hard seltzer. I think the leading brand is a brand called White Claw, but there are others that are very interesting. And they're basically alcoholic flavored sparkling waters, and that's what they are. And their whole position is about low carb, low cal, and low alcohol, of course. So I think that's one way of looking at it. I also think that part of the reason that is driving the success of Italian liqueurs in the world is the fact that actually that there are products with a lot of substance, whether it's 30, 40, 50, 20 botanicals, but they are actually products that are really rooted into earth and into healthier ingredients. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you see a double-digit growth of Amari, herbal liqueurs, and Italian liqueurs in general, basically internationally. So again, I think health and spirits has to go with responsible drinking, which is what the industry is trying to promote and has been trying to promote for a long time, because it's in our interest.
Okay.
I think, again, I'm sure a lot of people in our audience are thinking that responsible drinking campaigns are a little bit of a way of the spirit industry to hide their sins. The reality is that there is, again, very strong evidence that responsible drinking is a way to success for spirit companies. At the same time, the biggest risk the spirit companies have is potential limitations by government rulings or so on. So the most successful countries are the ones that are in which the spirit industry is self-regulating itself. And actually self-regulation within the spirit industry in many countries is significantly stricter than the government laws in many ways. And that's, to be honest, again, having been in this industry for 25 years and working across different countries, I can see that as the only path to success. So actually, when we talk about responsible drinking, believe it or not, we actually believe in it as businesses.
I want to add something also regarding the advertising campaign. As Marco said before, we not only respect the regulation and the laws, but in our advertising, we never show someone drinking alone, and also the consumption is linked to a celebration. We produce liquors, we produce alcohol, and I don't know. I'm not sure if our customer would probably did the same question regarding bubbles or champagne. So we are linked with celebration. Together, when we drink Sambuca, Molinari, or when we drink Amaro Montenegro, we are never alone. We drink together, and so because we don't sell only a product, we sell an history, we sell a dream. So I don't want to be too much ambitious, but our products are absolutely linked to celebration, to a particular moment together with your friends, with your family. So drink responsibly. So we are in a university. I don't want to be a teacher, but I wanna leave a message, especially to the guys who attended university, who are approaching the world of work life. Drink responsibly, together with your friends, to celebrate a moment, and don't forget that's your life, so you should respect it.
And Leonardo, you just said that you are selling an historical product, you're selling tradition, so all of you're selling something that is strictly related to the tradition.
Oh.
But one of the main words in the economy world is innovation. How innovation is related to your industry, and how you try to innovate?
So everyone talks about innovation.
Everyone.
It's something really difficult to catalog in our industry. We don't sell cell phone or computers. If I think of my company, it's a 125 years company. If we think at probably 10 most selling brands in our industry, most of them already existed up to 50 years ago, Sambuca or Amaro Montenegro, even, of course, Sambuca Molinari, of course, and Campari. Tradition and innovation, as you said, can be an oxymoron. So those words are completely different.
Of course, because you're not able to change the ingredients of the Amaro. Because
First of all,
because say why?
It's a very
Say why.
because it's a very old recipe. Also, for sure, Montenegro. I'm talking about Lucano. It's a 100 years old recipe that was in this case established and created by my great grandfather. So, absolutely, I will not change even one ingredient. So I'm trying to innovate. That's my rule. Together with my brother, I'm trying to innovate an 125 years old company. So in my opinion, my view is that our industry is more the innovation in our industry is more linked to consumption. So everyone is searching a different way of consuming alcohol and liquors. So who would ever imagine to use Amaro, for example, for doing cocktails? But now it's something real. You can go in all bars and restaurants in New York, and now also this trend is booming also in Italy, and you for sure will find a list of several cocktails with Montenegro, Lucano, and other wonderful products. So in my view, innovation is more related to consumption, and also in terms of advertising. As we said before, we are changing our way of communicate, but for sure our company will never leave the roots. We come from 120 and 25 years ago, and we will never lose our habits.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you just said. I can give you an example. I mean, my grandfather had an important company already, but at one point he decided to invest money in the Carosello. That was the the advertising that we had in Italy, basically at 8 what today we would call prime time. At that time they didn't have this term, most probably. So I think the innovation was in how to communicate the brand. Probably he started selling in bars and promoting in the product in bars. Then he went on TV, and nowadays I think it's time for social, of course, but again to go back to the bars and engage people to the bars again. So you have to be in the right place at the right moment, and that's the secret for innovation in our industry.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. Innovation in the spirit industry is very much about drinking occasion, innovating within that, and moment basically of when you're drinking your product. Technology in the spirit industry is relatively low. Anything that could have been distilled has been distilled, so you're not really inventing. So I mentioned White Claw earlier in the hard seltzer category. None of the ingredients inside White Claw, inside hard seltzer is innovative, but is the blend of those things and what it delivers to satisfy a consumer need. So when you look at innovation within the spirit industry, there is a lot of effort, and the people that are basically dedicated are very much people with marketing background, consumer insight background, because that's where you can expect some innovation.
Yeah, frankly speaking, there are a few. We are trying to search something new in terms of ingredients, but it's quite difficult. Yeah. You will not move the top 10 top-selling brands from the list. We are trying to work with the local producer. We are trying to do like 0 miles ingredients, but my view is actually absolutely negative in this term.
But and again, think of the spirit industry in the last 20, 25 years, which is the one that I have experienced directly. All the most successful new things, you could really argue that they're not that innovative. I mean, think of Grey Goose with the explosion of the super premium vodka in the early 2000s. What was innovative about Grey Goose was it was a French vodka in a very fancy packaging. So what they've been really good at is basically marketing that drink, basically, and premiumizing a relatively neutral liquid. More recently, Hendrick's, fantastic success within the gin. And again, gin has exploded and probably has gone a little bit too far, but that's a very personal opinion. But Hendrick's is a brand that will stay. What's innovative about it? Again, there is no technology within it. It's an interesting concept with a cucumber as a base ingredient. Again, nothing that they invented, but they took it into a spirit environment, and again, another fancy and premium packaging. So again, just to stress, because I'm kind of thinking, some of the people that may be listening to us will one day will find themselves working in some of the best spirit companies in the world. With innovations, what you're trying to do, again, it's very much about consumer insights. That's where you actually get your ideas to tap into new consumer occasions, and that's a reality.
Well, and there is also another point that sometimes innovation can be confused with lack of focus, so that you start, producing more and more. Even talking about our company, back in the 40s, we had a lot of products, and then suddenly my grandfather decided to focus on only one brand, and that was the key of the success. Sometimes it's risky to launch new brands, also because in our I think I read a couple of years ago that in our industry only 2% of brands have decent success. 2% is
It's really good.
it's dangerous, let's say. So going back to your example, there was another one from the same importer in the United States that is direct competitors of yours. Is Jägermeister.
Jägermeister, yeah.
That was the first Amaro bitter in the American market, but was not really a new brand. Was an old brand with a heritage that sold his heritage to American consumers.
But once again, the rule of success of Jägermeister was the consumption, was the different way of consumption, especially in college, as a shot, something completely different from the Italian heritage.
Or German.
Or German.
But
heritage.
again, not to prove myself right, but all these success examples of success have had an incredibly strong route to market, strong focus, and solid brands with very, very solid investments. Without that, I don't think we would be seeing it. Aperol as well. Again, I wasn't trying to put Aperol again. Strong route to market, strong brand with solid investments, and a lot of focus. I think it really helps.
Last question from Valerie. What kind of new revenue streams do you try to generate to diversify better in the future?
Talking about my company, so first of all, what Marco said before, for sure there is a huge potential, especially abroad, for private label. But I want to underline in what I was saying before. So we are selling history, we are selling tradition, we are selling a dream, and for sure what we did in our region, and also what my colleagues are doing in their region, so is selling not only a product but a dream. We just built a new museum. Is an incredible opportunity, especially for the tourism, for the local tourism. And we are attracting a lot of people that are able to visit our company and see how we do our products. And together with the museum, we just opened a flagship store. Our intention is to open several stores in Italy in the next few years. And for my company, that is probably the smallest in this discussion, I'm sure that is an incredible opportunity. I'm sure that Mario is working in the same
Yes, I mentioned that when I had the question about innovation in Italy. I think that Italy has a competitive advantage, and that said very roughly, we are not bullshitting marketing. We are real heritage and history, and that's what people want to listen and what they want to buy, and we must sell it. So at the same, as he said, we also built a factory a facility in Sorrento where you can see the lemons production. We are sponsoring a terrace in Rome where you can try our brands. We have a Grappa distillery up in the Alps, and that's what I think that the new consumer is looking for right now.
Yeah, I agree that brand homes can be a potential revenue stream for many of our companies, many of our brands. Other areas where spirit companies may be looking at, I'm not necessarily saying that we would do it as a company, but I think there is an area that is content creation. I think brands have a lot to say. We live in a world basically that is very much an outgoing social environment as brands, the whole spirit industry. So I think I think we could generate content creation that goes beyond the simple marketing of our own brands, and generally I think probably entertainment is an area where spirits can operate in. I remember very early in my career, a marketing director I worked with told me that he told me, Marco, make sure you understand that we are in the entertainment business. That's what we do as spirits, and I think again, broadly speaking, that's an area that where we can play a role as an industry.
Okay. I think that that is it. Let me just say thanks to our guest.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot to be here with us. It was a real pleasure and real honor to have you with us this evening. Thanks a lot, Vittoria.
Thank you to all of you.
And let me say, just to finalize our debate, that in my opinion, they are three guests that are quite different in terms of companies that they are managing, in terms of also background. But their companies have in common a couple of things that I want to mention. First of all, the great passion that they put in what they are doing. Great passion not only for products that they are selling, but great passion in order to understand what consumer wants, what are the main consumer needs, and how to try to satisfy customers and consumer preferences. And second, they try to innovate, as they explained before, without forgetting the roots, without forgetting the tradition. They just not sell a product, they sell an history, they sell something that comes from the past, they try to sell a dream for the future generation. So, thanks a lot to all of you, and good luck for the future, and good luck for your job, and good luck for the next years.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.